Hello guys, I am Umair Nazim and welcome to Let's Code. In the previous video, I showed you what are the arrays in Java and how to use them. With this, we also covered a lot of more topics in a very detail. But in today's tutorial, I am going to teach you how to get the user inputs in array and how to get the output. Like in the previous video, what we did actually, we initialized the array values by our own choice and then we get the output by using the for loop and for each loop. But in this video, we will get the values from the user. So you can say that the user will input the values of his own choice. So without wasting any time, let me show you. So for that reason, first of all, I'm going to write here the scanner class. So now as you can see that here I have written this scanner class so to get the user inputs, and there is an error. When I will scroll on this error, as you can see here it is giving an option import scanner util.java.util. That is our library. So I will click here and our library has imported successfully. Now after that, actually now we are going to take the values from the user for the array. So the first thing is that we must have to specify the size of our array. Now what is an array? Before going writing the code, let me show you with a paint. So let me open my paint here. So now actually what is an array? You can think that suppose like this one. So suppose here actually this one is our memory, for example. And also you can think that this one is our array. So think that this one is our array. Now when the user wants to enter, for example, the 5 values in an array, then the array will create 5 spaces into your memory. So think that this container is like an array, and the first thing is that we must have to specify how many values we want to enter in the array. So according to that, we must have, you can say that in other words, we must have to specify the size of our array. If the user want to enter 5 values, then what will happen? So it will create 5 spaces into our memory. This one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 3, this one is 4 and 5. So as you can see, these different 5 spaces has created in our memory. Now one thing please must remember it, our array index will start from 0 always. So this first space will call 0, this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 3, and this one is 4. So if we start it from 0 to 4, it will become 5. So now the first thing is that we must want to get the like array size from the user. So for that reason, I will create here an integer. I will call here n, and I will display a message to the user here, and I will display a message, how many values do you want to enter? Now as you can see here, I write how many values do you want to enter. So when user will say, for example, 5 or 10 values, so it means that we will get to know that how many values the user want to enter, and according to that we will create our array size. So now I will get the value from the user and I will store them in the n variable. So here I will use n equal to scan dot, and now I'm going to deal with the integer. That's why I will use here next int. So now our next step is to create an array. So to create an array, first I'm going to deal with the string type array. After that I will also show you an example how to get the values as an integer. So our first step is to declare the data type that is related to a string. After that I have to write these two brackets, these square brackets here, and these square brackets will tell our compiler that now we are going to deal with the arrays and that data type is string. After that, we have to give a name to our array. So you can give any name, it is up to you, but I'm going to write here values. So now to initialize the size of an array, we will use here equal new, and after that you have to use your data type, this one string, and again you will put here square bracket. So within this square bracket, so as you can see here, if we scroll our cursor, and you can see the error is variable must provide their dimension. So for that one we will put here n. So why we put here n? Because when we will put here n, it means we have initialized the size of our array. Now this time what will be the size of array? How many numbers the user will enter, up to how many limits. For example, if the user entered 10, so it means our array will become that 10. So 10 spaces, you can say our array will become 10 spaces. So for that reason, now we have made our array successful, and now our next step is to get the input values from the user. So for that one I will use here for loop, and I will use integer I is equal to 0. Now why I is equal to 0? Because as you can see in the paint also I have showed our array, the first index always start from 0. So that's why I use here I is equal to 0, then you have to use here semicolon, then I is less than. Now what is the array size? Now the array size is n. I is less than n, and after that we will increment our loop I plus plus like this. So for within this for loop, now I will get the values from the user and I will store them in an array. Now my array name is values. I will write here values, and here I will use I within this square bracket, and I will tell you why I use here I. Now I will use here scan dot. Now I'm going to deal with the strings, so for that reason I will use here this one next. Now why I use here I? Because whenever now as you can see our index is 0 in the for loop. So here in the index of 0 it will get the value and it will store that value in the index 0. Then it will come to this statement, it will check 0 is less than n. Yes, it, for example, if the user want to enter the values 5, so 0 is less than 5. So it means at the index of 0 it will store the first value. After that it will increment again the loop will become 1, and it will check is 1 less than 5. Yes, then on the index 1 it will store the second value, then again it will increment, and same like this. So for example, here in the paint, if the user want to enter 5 values and the first value he want to enter is, for example, Umair, so that Umair will be stored here. And so I cannot write the full spellings here, so you can say that Umair will be stored in the 0 index, then loop will increment, and when in the first index it want to store another name. For example, you can say, let's suppose Hamza, so Hamza will be stored here, for example. So in the second index the user want to store Harry, for example. So as you can see here, for example, the Harry is stored here. Now in the third index it will store Helen, for example. So this one you can say Helen, and in the fourth index, last index, you want to store Emre. So for example, you can say. Now as you can see, the 5 values has stored according to their index. In the 0 index it is Umair, in the first index it is Hamza, in the second index it is Harry, in the third index it is Helen, and in the fourth index it is Emre. So now similar like this logic will work similar like this that I explained. Now you can say that we have successfully stored the values into an array, and now when we want to get the output, again we have to use for loop. So 2 times we have to use for loop. When you want to enter something into the array, you have to use for loop, and when you want to get the output, again you have to use for loop. So here I will use again for loop here, and this time I will write here integer j is equal to 0. Now as you can see, first I write here I, because within one method we cannot use the 2 variables with the same name. So it will same like this one, but here I am using this one like instead of j, I'm using here, instead of I, I'm using here j. J is equal to 0, j is less than n, and j plus plus. Now I have to display the output, and I will use here system.out.println, and within this one I will use here my array name, and again I will use here j. Now this one is the loop j. It will run, it will do work same like this. So for example, here the index is 0, so it will get the 0 index value and it will print. Now what is the 0 index value? For example, that is Umair, so it will get Umair. Then again for the first index it will get Hamza, same like this, you can say. So now let's execute this one and see the result. So now the first message is, how many values do you want to enter? The user will say 5 values. For example, it is up to you. You want to store, for example, 100 values, it will store 100 values. So here 5. And after that, sorry, here I did not write the values, did not display the message to the user. So I will write here, please enter values. Please enter the values. So now the user will enter values. Now let me execute this one again and let's see. So the user want to enter, for example, 5 values. Now please enter the values. Now the user want to enter, first name is, for example, Umair. The second name is Hamza. And the third name is Harry. The fourth name is Helen. And the fifth name is Emre. Now these green lines are the input of the user. Okay, when I will click OK, so as you can see, this one is our output: Umair, Hamza, Harry, Helen, and Emre. This is our output. So I have successfully shown you how we can store the arrays with data type string. So instead of this for loop here, for the output, I am just saying for the output. You can also use for each loop, and that for each loop I already show you in the previous video. If you want to use here for each loop, so you can please check my previous video. So after that, for example, if our user want to store some input, some integer values, so for that one, this structure is same. So instead of using here string, I will use here integer, and here instead of string, again I will use the data type, that is integer. So please enter the values. So here instead of this one, so as you can see, this time the value is, the data type is integer. So here instead of this next, I will remove this one and I will use here scan dot, now next integer. So here I will use next integer, and now let's run this one. So how many values do you want to enter? This time, for example, I want to say 4 values. So I will use one value. The first value is 1, second is 2, 3, 4. Now this one is our output with a black color.
So guys, that's it for today. If you like the video, subscribe my channel, write your comments, give your opinion, and share it with your friends. See you in the next video with a new topic. Take care.